In order to set up our release pipeline, what we're going to do is get into our Azure DevOps pipeline and come down to the pipelines section, and we want to go into the releases. And once you get here, you're probably going to want to start off by creating a new release pipeline. I don't need to do that because I already have it set up, so I'm just going to go ahead and click Edit. And if this is a new pipeline, it's going to start with a single stage being defined, and it's going to be highlighted already. So you can go ahead and give it a name. Here I'm calling it Dev. And what you're also going to want to do is add an artifact. So I already have an artifact, but to add one, you're going to come in here and you're going to want to select the build that you have set up already. Select the right project, and then you can go ahead and select the actual build that you're going to have it deploy. For me, it's creating an alias for what the artifacts are for that build. I have a collision because I already have that same thing added, so I'm just going to close out of this, but that's really all you need to do. And once that artifact is available, you'll see it in some of the options when you're building out your pipeline. So now to actually set the jobs and tasks that the release is going to do, we can click on this part of the stage icon there. And what we're going to do is go through, and first we're going to deploy the infrastructure, then push the app service code to that infrastructure. We're going to wait for that app to become responsive, unzip it, then run those functional tests, and then publish the results. So setting up the ARM template to be deployed, first thing you're going to need to do is set up a service principal. So I have one called SP creation. You can manage these through a few different ways, but the easiest way is going to be right here. You're probably going to be able to just say, click your subscription, and yeah, I want to use that, and it should give you the authorization to be able to do that. It's going to have to pop up a new window. You're going to go through some steps to log in. I'm actually not going to do this because at the time of this recording, this doesn't work. So I actually created this SP creation service principal through creating a new Azure DevOps project from the Azure portal. But in the end, you just need to have a service principal that has access to be able to modify a resource group. So you can leave the default action as create or update resource group. If this is the first time you're trying to deploy, you aren't going to have a resource group already defined. And it's up to you how you want to name those. I choose to put the environment name in there with RG to specify that that resource type is a resource group. So this is just Brendan LDOM dev RG. You need to pick a location. I usually just choose East US because it's close to me and it has all the newest things earlier than most other places. The template location, we're going to leave it as a linked artifact, and what you're going to be able to do is click the ellipses there, and it's going to show you the linked artifacts from our build, and we can go into our drop folder, and we can see here is the template. So that's what I want to pick for that first option. It's not letting me click OK because it's smart enough to annoy me by recognizing that I haven't changed anything, so I can cancel it. But similarly, for the template parameters, we're going to go in here, same flow. I'm going to choose the dev properties file. And that's it for that particular task. Nothing else is needed. For the app service deploy, similarly, you need to pick that same service principal. We're going to leave, and also I want to point out I'm using version 3, not version 4. Just it has some options that I'm going to leverage here. And we're going to leave the app type as web app. We're going to pick for the app service name. Again, this is something that if you haven't deployed yet, it's not going to be available. But because I already created that, I actually have it available in my dropdown. But you can name it whatever you want here. It just has to match what your ARM template is going to do, which you can pull from the parameters file. A couple other things we want to do. So we want to pick the zip file. For this tutorial, the zip file for the application is named dynamically. So this particular one is application 40, is the latest. If I click OK there, that's going to put it in as that explicit name. That's actually not what we want though, because that's going to change the next time around. So we're going to change that 40 to an asterisk. Then you're going to come down here, you're going to have to expand this. And what's going to happen is this is going to store what the URL of that app service is into a variable. And you need to make sure that that name is web app URL, because by setting that as a variable here, what that's going to do is it's going to allow it to be available as an environment variable for the functional tests. And so we want to make sure that it knows the right URL to go to. The next task is a PowerShell task. So add a PowerShell task, tell it that it needs to load a script. And so you're going to give it the path to that from our artifact, just like the other things. So here we say wait site available. That's the one you're going to want to use. No additional things there. You want to have an extract files task where you're going to point it at your zip file. So you can just give it a pattern of teststar.zip, because again, this is a dynamic name. The last one was 40, next one will be 41, and so on. And go ahead and tell it to just extract that to the working directory /tests. Next, you want to have it actually run the tests that it has extracted there. So this is an npm task. I'm using version 1 of the test. You're going to set the command to custom, and then for the location of the package.json, give it that folder that you just unzipped to. And then for the command, it's going to be run functional test : report. One more thing that we're going to want to do here is under the control options, you want to make sure that you tell it to continue on error. The reason being, if it fails here, then it has the test results stored as an XML file, but it's not going to be easy to see that XML file. So we want it to continue on error here so that it gets to the next task here, which is a publish test results. And here you're just going to tell it, it's a test result in JUnit format. Give it the pattern of ** /test minus star.xml. I believe all these are the default values. And then you want to go ahead and tell it that, yes, I want it to fail if there are test failures. So this task of run functional test and the task of publish test results, you want to have those work together so that the first one lets the errors pass through, but then the second one actually reports the errors from that test run. With all that in place, you should be good to go. This pipeline I have set up also goes on to a prod environment, which what you can do is actually from the pipeline, you can clone dev. If you see me do it here, it's actually going to make it branch off. And then really the only thing you need to do is in here, you're going to modify the resource group name for your ARM template. So for me, for my prod, I just remove the dev name. And then for my parameters file, I want to switch from that dev one to the prod one. And then the only other change you'll need to make is in your app service deployment. You need to change the app service name so that it matches what your prod URL is. Again, that's going to be in your parameters file. And so if I go back to my pipeline, I actually don't want that stage because I already have my prod one. But once you're all set, you can see I can't save right now because the Azure pipeline is smart enough to know that I haven't made any changes. But ultimately what you want to do is save, and it's always a good idea to add some comments. But once it's done, then you're good to go, and you can either push a change to your code so you watch it go through your whole CI/CD pipeline, or you can just create a release from here. And so because I'm creating it from here, I have to tell it which version of the code I want to have it deploy, so which artifact. So I just tell it, yep, I want you to deploy the latest one. And actually, I just wanted to make sure I'd actually scrolled up to the top. And I'm going to go ahead, click the release, and now it shows me that a release has been created. And if I click on that, I'll see that it's queued up and ready to go. This is going to take, about 4 or 5 minutes, but when it's all done, I should make sure it's going to make sure that my infrastructure is compliant with my ARM template. It matches what I declared there, and it's going to have that new app deployed, and it's going to have the tests ran against it. So it should be all good, ready to roll. So that's it. Hopefully this was helpful. Bye.